Behind him, soft piano music drifted from the grand room where his wife, Clara, was finalizing details for next week's charity gala. Her voice, calm, precise, elegant, floated through the hallway like silk. "Lucas," she called gently, "you've been quiet all evening." He didn't turn immediately. His reflection in the glass showed a man in a tailored suit, silver threading his temples, eyes shadowed by something he couldn't name. "Just thinking," he said, his voice low. Clara stepped beside him, her hand resting lightly on his arm. She wore a cream silk robe, her dark hair pulled back in a loose knot. "About the merger?" she asked, searching his face. He almost laughed. If only it were that simple. "No," he said softly. "About choices." She tilted her head, puzzled but patient. "We've made good ones, haven't we? The foundation, the children's wing at the hospital. Even this gala. It's going to change lives." He looked at her then, really looked. Clara was more than his wife. She was his shield, his alibi, his public face. Gracious, intelligent, fiercely committed to causes that healed the world while he built empires on spreadsheets and silence. She deserved truth, but truth had a price he'd spent years avoiding. "I hope so," he murmured. She squeezed his arm. "You carry too much, Lucas. Let go of whatever's weighing on you." If only she knew. 3 years ago, in a rain-soaked alley behind a downtown cafe, another woman had said those exact words to him. "Let go or hold on, but don't leave me wondering." Mariana. Her name still echoed in his chest like a missed heartbeat. He'd chosen silence then. He'd chosen Clara's world, its safety, its order, its unshakable reputation. And he'd walked away from Mariana's trembling hands, her tear-streaked face, the life just beginning inside her. Now, standing beside the woman who believed him whole, Lucas felt the weight of that choice like a stone in his lungs. "I'm proud of you," Clara said, leaning her head against his shoulder for a moment. "This gala, it's for mothers who've been left behind, forgotten. You helped make it happen. That matters." Her words struck like lightning. Mothers who've been left behind. He closed his eyes. "I didn't do enough," he whispered. Clara pulled back, frowning. "What do you mean?" He couldn't answer. Not yet. Outside, a car horn blared in the distance. The city kept moving. But inside, time had stopped 3 years ago, and it was only now beginning to catch up. He set the whiskey down, untouched. "Let's go over the guest list again," he said, forcing steadiness into his voice. "I want everything perfect for you." She smiled, relieved. Always the perfectionist. But as she walked back into the light-filled room, Lucas stayed by the window a moment longer, staring into the dark. Somewhere out there, a child he'd never held was turning 3. And somewhere deeper, a truth he could no longer outrun was stirring. The gala wasn't just Clara's cause. It was fate's reckoning. And he was already late. Certo, agora tu como narrador e storyteller desenvolva a historia sem marcacos com o nome de cada topico que for desenvolve. Mi conti sobrio topico tu com dialogo como su fosso espectador. Sempre lembrando de desenvolver com vida moco. Com vidos sentimentos de forma que a estrutura de narrativa utiliza uma linha temporal linear, de modo o espectador sentir o que o personagem está sentindo amingles. Com 6.000 characters quen 3 max 11:05 am, it began not with grand declarations, but with stolen moments, quiet glances over coffee cups, hushed laughter in empty conference rooms long after the office lights had dimmed. 3 years ago, Lucas Vale didn't just meet Mariana. He saw her, not as an assistant, not as a name on an organizational chart, but as someone whose eyes held storms and stillness in equal measure. She worked part-time at the cultural foundation affiliated with his company. Earnest, sharp, always carrying a worn leather satchel filled with poetry books and notes for community workshops. She wasn't dazzled by his title. In fact, the first time he invited her to dinner, she'd laughed softly and said, "I don't date men who own helicopters." He'd smiled. "I don't fly it. My pilot does." That was the night it started, not with seduction but with honesty. Or so it felt. For months, They met in hidden corners of the city. A bookstore in Villa Maddalena, a riverside bench at dusk, a tiny bakery where no one knew his face. Lucas, accustomed to control, found himself disarmed by her quiet certainty, her belief that kindness was a form of courage. She spoke of teaching literacy to single mothers, of rebuilding her life after losing her own parents young. Everyone deserves a second chance, she once told him, stirring sugar into her tea. Even the ones who don't ask for it. And he believed her, until he didn't. Their love existed outside time, a fragile bubble suspended above the real world. He never lied about being married. But he never spoke of Clara either, not in detail. He called their marriage a partnership of convenience. And Mariana, young and hopeful, chose to believe that love could rewrite even the oldest contracts. One rainy evening, sitting in her small apartment where books lined every wall and jasmine bloomed on the windowsill, she took his hand. Her fingers trembled. "Lucas," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "I'm pregnant." Silence stretched like a wire pulled too tight. He didn't pull away, but he didn't embrace her either. His face, usually so composed, cracked. "Are you sure?" She nodded, tears welling. 8 weeks. I've been so scared to tell you, but I had to. This changes everything, doesn't it? He looked around the room, at the framed photo of her mother, at the tiny cactus on the shelf, at the future suddenly blooming in her eyes. And for a heartbeat, he wanted to say yes. Yes, it changes everything. Yes, I'll leave. Yes, I'll be a father. But then he thought of shareholders, headlines, his father's voice in his head. Legacy isn't built on sentiment, Lucas. It's built on control. "I need time," he said, standing abruptly. "This is enormous." She stood too desperate. "Time for what?" "To decide if you want your own child." "I didn't say that," he snapped, too sharply, and instantly regretted it. Mariana stepped back as if struck. The light in her eyes dimmed, replaced by something harder. Understanding. "You're not going to leave her," she said quietly. It wasn't a question. He couldn't meet her gaze. "It's not that simple." "Then it was never real," she whispered. He reached for her. "Mariana." "No," she said, pulling away. "If you walk out that door tonight, don't come back pretending you care. Either you're in this, or you're gone." Rain drummed against the window like a heartbeat racing toward a decision. He kissed her forehead once, lingering, but his hands were already letting go. "I'll find a way to support you," he said, voice thick. "Financially, whatever you need." She laughed, a broken sound. "I don't want your money, Lucas. I wanted you." He left, and for 3 years he told himself he'd done the right thing. Protecting Clara, protecting his legacy, protecting everyone but the woman who carried his child and the son he'd never hold. Now, miles away in his gilded life, he didn't know her address, her phone number, even her son's name. Oak with the same crushing weight, cowardice dressed as caution. Then, one Tuesday, his assistant slid a small envelope across his desk. No return address, just her handwriting looping, deliberate, achingly familiar. He opened it alone in his office, heart hammering like a guilty thing. "Lucas, I waited. I really did. But silence is its own answer. I won't raise our child in the shadows, waiting for you to choose us. If you ever want to know him, really know him, come to the maternity ward on Rua das Flores next Friday at 3 p.m. I'll be there. One chance. That's all I can give." Mariana, his hands shook. Friday was in 3 days. He rehearsed 100 scenarios. Holding his son for the first time, telling Clara the truth, walking away from everything to start over. But by Friday morning, doubt had coiled around his chest like a serpent. What if Clara found out? What would the press say? What if he wasn't ready? He told himself he'd go just to see, just to stand outside the room. But when his driver pulled up to the modest hospital on Rua das Flores, Lucas didn't move. From the car window, he saw her. She stood near the entrance, one hand resting protectively on her belly, the other clutching a small bag. Her hair was shorter now, her face tired but calm. She scanned the street once, twice, searching for him. He sank lower in the seat. His phone buzzed. Clara. Darling, are you still joining me for lunch? The board is waiting. He stared at the screen, then at Mariana, who now looked down at her watch. Her shoulders slumped, just slightly. The hope in her posture faded, replaced by a quiet resignation that cut deeper than anger ever could. He typed back, "On my way," and then, without looking again, he told the driver, "Go." The car pulled away. Behind him, Mariana turned and walked back inside. Alone. He never went to the hospital. He never called. He convinced himself it was kinder this way, that a clean break would hurt less than a half-hearted presence. That money, an anonymous trust arranged through a lawyer, would be enough. But that afternoon, as he sat stiffly at a luncheon with investors, smiling at jokes he didn't hear, he kept seeing her face when she realized he wouldn't come. Not rage, not tears, disappointment so deep it looked like grief. 3 days later, he received another envelope, thinner this time. "You didn't come, so I won't wait anymore. I'm leaving Sao Paulo. Don't try to find us. If you ever truly want to be a father, not just a name on a birth certificate, you'll have to earn it. And I won't be holding your hand while you learn. Our son will know love, even if it's not yours." He read it standing in his penthouse library, the city glittering below, cold and indifferent. He folded the letter, then folded it again, and again until it was a small, hard square in his palm. He never threw it away. Instead, he locked it in his desk drawer, the same one where he kept his marriage certificate. And for 3 years, he lived with the ghost of a choice he'd made in a car parked outside a hospital he never entered. Now, as he stood beside Clara in their sunlit home, rehearsing guest lists for a charity gala meant to help women like her, women abandoned, mothers left to build lives from rubble, he felt the past press against his ribs like a fist, because he didn't know it yet. But in less than a week, at that very gala, he'd look across a room full of elegantly dressed strangers and see him, a little boy with Mariana's eyes, and his own stubborn chin. She'd come here on a whisper and a prayer. A friend from her old literacy group had mentioned a vacant cottage near the community center. Rent cheap, neighbors kind, sea air clean. No skyscrapers, no headlines, no ghosts in tailored suits. The cottage was tiny. Peeling blue paint, a sagging porch, jasmine climbing the walls, but it was theirs. The first night, after tucking Davi into a second-hand crib, Mariana sat on the floor and wept silently, not from sadness, but from the sheer weight of freedom. She was no longer the woman waiting in a hospital doorway. She was someone else now. A mother, a teacher, a woman who scrubbed floors, taught reading at the local center, and grew herbs in clay pots on her windowsill. And Davi, he was joy made flesh. May, he'd say every morning, patting into her room with sleep-tousled hair. "Did you know I dreamed about flying again?" She'd pull him close, breathe in the scent of baby shampoo and salt air. "Tell me everything." She never spoke ill of his father. Not once. But she didn't lie either. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching fireflies blink over the garden, Davi asked, "Where's my daddy?" Her heart stopped. She turned him gently to face her. "He wasn't ready to be a daddy when you were born. Will he ever be?" She swallowed hard. "I don't know, meu amor, but you are loved. So deeply. By me, by Aunt Lucia, by everyone here." He frowned, then nodded with the solemn wisdom only children possess. "Okay, then I'll be your brave boy." She kissed his forehead, blinking back tears. "You already are." Life wasn't easy. There were nights she counted coins to pay for milk. Days she cried in the shower so Davi wouldn't hear. But every morning, she woke with purpose. She turned her pain into service, helping other single mothers at the community center, organizing food drives, teaching them to read so they could fill out job applications, custody forms, medical records. She became their anchor, and slowly, the town embraced her. Old Dona Elza brought soup when Davi had a fever. Teenagers from the literacy class painted her porch for free. The local bakery saved day-old bread for her project, as they called her work. Then came the letter, elegant paper, official seal. From the Veil Foundation. Dear Ms. Mariana F. We've been following your inspiring work in Il Habla. The Clara Veil Foundation is hosting its annual charity gala in Sao Paulo and would be honored if you'd attend as a guest speaker. Your story embodies the resilience we wish to celebrate. Mothers who build futures from fragments. Her hands trembled. Clara Veil, Lucas's wife, the woman whose life she'd once, however briefly, threatened to unravel. May? Davi tugged her sleeve. Who's it from? She folded the letter quickly. Just an invitation. That night, she paced the cottage floor, heart racing. Go? Return to the city that broke her? Stand on a stage while the wife of the man who abandoned her applauds her resilience? But then she looked at Davi, sleeping peacefully, his small chest rising and falling. This wasn't about Lucas anymore. This was about showing other women that survival could become strength, that shame could become voice. And maybe, just maybe, if fate had any mercy left, she'd walk into that gala and finally close the door on the past. She wrote back the next morning, I accept. She didn't tell anyone she was nervous, not even Lucia. But the closer the date came, the tighter her chest grew. She bought a simple navy dress with her savings, practiced her speech in the mirror, rehearsed answers to questions she prayed no one would ask. What if he's there? Lucia asked gently one evening, sipping tea on the porch. Mariana looked out at the sea, waves whispering against the shore. Then I'll look him in the eye, she said softly, and show him the life he walked away from. She didn't say she was terrified. She didn't say she still dreamed of him sometimes, standing in doorways, holding out empty hands. But as she packed Davi's favorite book into her bag before leaving for Sao Paulo, she whispered only one thing to the wind, please let me be strong enough, because soon, under crystal chandeliers and polite applause, she would stand beside the woman married to the father of her child, unaware that the boy with her had his eyes, his smile, his quiet intensity. And the man who once left her waiting at a hospital would look across a glittering perfect. Her assistant murmured, stepping back. The press is already calling it the most heartfelt gala of the season. Clara smiled faintly. Let's hope it raises more than headlines. She glanced at her phone. Lucas had texted an hour ago, running late, traffic. Save me a seat. She'd replied with a heart emoji, but something about his tone had unsettled her. He'd been distant all week, staring into space during breakfast, canceling calls, flinching at sudden noises. When she'd asked if something was wrong, he'd kissed her forehead and said, just tired. But Clara knew that look. It wasn't fatigue. It was guilt. She pushed the thought away. She had a room full of donors, survivors, and stories to honor. And one guest in particular, Mariana Fernandez, whose quiet strength had moved her deeply when she read her nomination file. She started a literacy program for single mothers with nothing but donated books and stubborn hope. Clara had told Lucas over wine 2 nights ago, imagine that kind of courage. He'd gone very still. Mariana Fernandez? He'd asked, voice oddly tight. Clara had nodded. You've heard of her? No, he'd said too quickly. Just unusual name. Now, standing in the wings of the grand ballroom, Clara scanned the crowd for Mariana. She spotted her near the children's exhibit, kneeling beside a little boy, helping him glue seashells onto cardboard. The boy laughed, and Mariana's face lit up with a kind of joy Clara recognized but couldn't quite name. It was the joy of someone who'd been broken and rebuilt herself, piece by piece. Clara, a donor approached, champagne in hand. Your foundation continues to inspire. Who's the woman with the boy? Mariana Fernandez, Clara said warmly. She's speaking later. Her work in Il Habla is extraordinary. She's lovely, the woman said. And the boy? Hers. Yes, Clara smiled. Her son, Davi. Something flickered in the woman's eyes. He looks familiar. Clara laughed lightly. Probably reminds you of someone. But the seed was planted. Later, as guests settled into their seats, Clara stood at the podium, her voice calm and clear. Tonight, we honor women who turned pain into purpose, she began. Women like Mariana Fernandez, who didn't just survive abandonment, she built a sanctuary for others who've walked the same path. From the back of the room, Lucas froze. Abandonment. The word struck like a match in dry grass. He just slipped in late, unnoticed, at least he thought so, until his eyes landed on the stage. Not just Mariana. Him. The boy sat beside her on a small stool, swinging his legs, utterly unself-conscious. Same dark curls. Same slight tilt of the chin when listening. Same way of pressing his lips together when concentrating. Lucas's breath caught. His heart didn't beat, it stuttered. Beside him, Clara continued, unaware. Mariana teaches us that love isn't always grand gestures. Sometimes, it's showing up every day with tired eyes and an open heart. Lucas couldn't move, couldn't speak. The room blurred at the edges. All he saw was his son. 3 years old, real, breathing, here, sitting beside the woman he'd abandoned and the wife who had no idea. Then, as if sensing eyes upon him, Davi looked up, straight at Lucas, and smiled. Not a polite smile, not a stranger's smile, a child's open, trusting, recognizing smile, as if some deep, silent part of him knew. Lucas's knees nearly buckled. Clara finished her speech to warm applause. Now, please welcome Mariana Fernandez. As Mariana rose, she caught sight of Lucas. Her face went pale. Her hand flew to her throat. For a heartbeat, the world stopped. He saw it, the shock, the fear, the flash of old hurt. But then, with a strength that stole his breath, she straightened her shoulders, took her son's hand, and walked to the podium. Her voice, when she spoke, was steady. 3 years ago, I stood alone in a hospital, waiting for someone who never came. She began, eyes fixed not on Lucas, but on the women in the audience. But that moment didn't define me. My son did. Lucas stood rooted, ashamed, awed. And beside him, Clara, graceful, poised, utterly unaware, leaned over and whispered, "Isn't she remarkable?" He couldn't answer, because in that room of glittering lies and polished truths, the past had just and the clink of crystal as guests rose for the reception. Mariana stepped down from the podium, her pulse hammering in her throat. She kept her hand tightly clasped around Davi's. Small, warm, grounding. She hadn't planned to say that. Not so openly. But the words had risen like truth breaking the surface of a long-buried river. "May," Davi whispered, tugging her sleeve. "That man is still looking at me." She didn't need to ask who. She felt Lucas's presence like heat behind her skin. "Just walk. Meu amor," she murmured, chin high. "We're going to find Aunt Lucia." But fate had other plans. As they turned toward the terrace doors, Clara appeared before them. Radiant, sincere, unaware. "Mariana," she said warmly, extending both hands. "Your speech moved me to tears. Truly." Mariana forced a smile, her throat tight. "Thank you, Mrs. Vale." "Oh, please, Clara." She knelt slightly to meet Davi's eyes. "And you must be Davi. Your mother spoke so beautifully about you." Davi, ever curious, studied her. "You're pretty," he said simply. Clara laughed, delighted. "And you're charming. Come, you'll love the dessert table. We have chocolate fountains and tiny cakes shaped like books, just for little readers like you." Before Mariana could protest, Clara gently took Davi's other hand. "Walk with me." Mariana froze. The three of them, herself, Lucas's wife, and their son, strolling together like some surreal family portrait. Her stomach twisted. But Davi, unaware of the storm beneath the surface, grinned. "Okay." And so they walked. Lucas watched from across the room, glass forgotten in his hand. His wife, elegant, kind, generous, was holding the hand of the child he'd never claimed. And Mariana followed a step behind, her face a mask of composure, eyes burning with everything she couldn't say. He wanted to run, to step in, to confess, but his feet were stone. On the terrace, fairy lights glowed above potted olive trees. Clara knelt beside Davi in front of the dessert table, helping him choose a cake. "This one has blue icing. Your favorite color, right?" "How did you know?" Davi asked, eyes wide. I just guessed, Clara smiled. Lucky guess. Mariana stood a few feet away, arms crossed tightly over her chest, as if holding herself together. You didn't have to do this, she said quietly. Clara looked up, surprised. Do what? Be so kind. After everything. Clara straightened, brushing crumbs from her gown. After everything? She frowned slightly. Mariana, I don't know what you mean, but your work matters. You matter. And Davi? She glanced at the boy, now licking chocolate from his fingers. He's clearly extraordinary. Mariana's voice cracked. You have no idea how extraordinary. A beat of silence. Then Clara said softly, I'd like to know, if you're willing to share more. Mariana opened her mouth, but stopped, because just then, Lucas stepped onto the terrace. He didn't approach, just stood near the railing watching them, his eyes locked with Mariana's. Pleading, shattered, full of a recognition that went beyond words. Clara followed her gaze. Lucas, there you are. She waved him over. Come meet Mariana and her son, Davi. Mariana just gave the most powerful speech. Lucas walked slowly, each step heavier than the last. He stopped a few feet away, looked at Davi, really looked. The boy stared back, curious but unafraid. He looks like you, Clara said suddenly, tilting her head. The eyes, the way he tilts his head when he's thinking. Mariana's breath hitched. Lucas went pale. Clara laughed lightly. Silly, I know, but it's uncanny. Davi, sensing tension, tugged Mariana's dress. May, can we go home? Not yet, meu amor, she whispered, heart pounding. Lucas crouched down just slightly so he was at Davi's level. His voice was rough, barely controlled. Hi, Davi. Davi studied him. Hi. A pause. Then, with childlike bluntness, Are you sad? Lucas's eyes shimmered. Yes, he admitted softly. I am. Why? Because I missed a lot. Davi considered this. Then, without hesitation, he reached out and patted Lucas's hand. Once, gentle, forgiving. Mariana's vision blurred. Clara watched them, her smile fading. A flicker of something crossed her face. Confusion, then dawning unease. She looked from Lucas's trembling hands, to Davi's familiar eyes, to Mariana's silent tears. And for the first time, the polished world she'd built began to crack. Lucas, she said slowly. Who is this boy? The air stilled. Mariana held her breath. Lucas didn't look away from Davi. My son, he said. The words fell like glass shattering. Endshot, sharp, irreversible. My son. Clara didn't move, didn't blink. Her face, usually a masterpiece of grace under pressure, went utterly still, as if her body were holding its breath while her mind raced through collapsing worlds. Mariana's stomach dropped. She reached for Davi, pulling him gently against her legs. It's okay, meu amor, she whispered, though her own voice trembled. Just stay close. Davi looked up at her, sensing the shift. May, why is that lady sad? Clara finally turned to Lucas. Her voice was quiet, too quiet. How long? Lucas stood slowly, his posture rigid, eyes haunted. 3 years. 3 years, Clara repeated, tasting the words like poison. And you never told me. I was going to. When? After the gala? After I praised her courage on stage? After I held your son's hand like some gracious patron of the abandoned? Her voice cracked on the last word. Mariana stepped forward, unable to stay silent. Clara, I didn't come here for this. I didn't even know he'd be here. Clara's eyes snapped to her, wounded, furious, but not cruel. Then why did you come? For them? Mariana said, gesturing to the guests still mingling inside, unaware of the earthquake unfolding on the terrace. For the mothers who need this center funded. Not for him. Never for him. A long silence stretched between the three of them, broken only by the distant hum of the gala and the soft rustle of the wind through the olive trees. Davi tugged Mariana's hand. Can we go now? I don't like it here. Lucas looked at his son. really looked, and something broke in his expression. "Please," he said, voice raw. "Just give me 5 minutes." With him, Mariana's chest tightened. Every instinct screamed to shield Davi, to walk away and never look back. But she saw it. The genuine terror in Lucas's eyes, the trembling in his hands, the years of regret he'd carried in silence. And she remembered her own words, spoken just minutes ago on that stage. Love isn't always grand gestures. Sometimes, it's showing up. She knelt beside Davi. "Do you want to talk to him?" Davi looked at Lucas, then back at her. "Is he really my daddy?" Her heart shattered. "Yes, meu amor. He is." Davi studied Lucas again, his face, his hands, the way he stood like he was afraid to take up space. Then, with the unguarded wisdom only children possess, he nodded. "Okay." Mariana stood, her voice firm but quiet. 5 minutes. Here, in front of me. Lucas didn't argue. He crouched again, this time even lower, so he was eye level with Davi. His hands hovered, unsure if he could touch him. "Can I hold your hand?" he asked. Davi offered it without hesitation. Lucas closed his eyes for a second, as if memorizing the feel of his son's small fingers in his own. "I'm sorry," he whispered, "for not being there." Davi tilted his head. "My May says sorry isn't enough. You have to do something." Lucas swallowed hard. "You're right, and I want to know you, to be part of your life. If you'll let me." Davi considered this, then pointed to a tiny scar on his knee. "I fell off my bike last week. It hurt a lot, but May kissed it, and it got better." Lucas's voice broke. "I wish I'd been there to kiss it too." Tears welled in Davi's eyes. "You can kiss it now." And just like that, on a terrace glittering with fairy lights, with his wife standing 10 feet away and the past roaring in his ears, Lucas Vale bent down and gently kissed the faded scar on his son's knee. A single tear rolled down his cheek. Behind them, Clara watched, arms wrapped tightly around herself. The anger was still there, but so was something else. Grief, not just for the betrayal, but for the years lost, the family they could have been, the truth hidden beneath polished surfaces. She turned away, walking slowly toward the edge of the terrace, where the city lights shimmered below like distant stars. Mariana saw her go. For a heartbeat, she hesitated, then gently squeezed Davi's shoulder. "Stay right here, okay? I'll be back." She walked toward Clara. The two women stood side by side in silence for a long moment. "He didn't tell me," Clara finally said, voice hollow. "Not because he didn't trust me, but because he was ashamed." Mariana nodded. "Yes, I thought we had everything," Clara whispered. "A partnership, respect, even love in its own way." "You still do," Mariana said softly, "but maybe not the same way." Clara turned to her, eyes red but clear. "Do you love him?" Mariana smiled faintly, sadly. "I loved the man I thought he could be, but I love my son more, and that means I won't let pride or pain dictate his future." Clara looked back at Lucas, still crouched beside Davi, now showing him how to balance a tiny cake on his finger. The boy was laughing, light, unguarded, healing. "I don't know if I can forgive him," Clara said. "You don't have to decide tonight," Mariana replied. "But maybe, just maybe," adds close together as the boy showed him how to fold a napkin into a tiny boat. His hands, used to signing billion-dollar deals, moved slowly, carefully, as if afraid the moment might dissolve if he touched it too hard. Mariana watched from a few steps away, arms wrapped around herself against the cool night air. Her chest ached with a strange mix of relief and dread. She'd protected Davi for 3 years. Now, in one evening, that wall had cracked, and she didn't know if she was strong enough to rebuild it, or if she even should. Clara stood near the railing, staring into the city below. Her posture was rigid, but her fingers trembled around the stem of her abandoned champagne flute. Lucas finally stood, brushing his trousers. Davi looked up at him, eyes wide with something new. "Trust." "I have to go now," Lucas said softly. Davi's face fell. "Already? I'll come back." Lucas promised, voice thick. If your mother says it's okay. Mariana met his gaze. No anger, no forgiveness, just quiet assessment. We'll see. He nodded, then turned to Clara. She didn't look at him. Clara, he began. Don't, she said, still facing the skyline. Not here. Not now. He stepped closer, voice low. I know you're hurt. I know I don't deserve your understanding. But please, let me explain. She finally turned. Her eyes were dry, but her voice carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken nights. Explain what, Lucas? That you loved me while lying to me? That you built a life with me while raising a son I never knew existed? Or that you let me stand on that stage tonight and praise a woman whose child carries your blood? While I smiled like a fool, he flinched. I never wanted you to find out like this. Then when? She shot back, voice breaking. When he started school. When he needed your last name for a passport. Or were you just going to keep sending checks and pretending it never happened? He had no answer. Mariana stepped forward gently. Clara, I never asked for this. I never wanted to hurt you. Clara looked at her. Really looked, and something softened in her expression. I know, she said quietly. That's what makes it worse. You're not the villain. You're just another casualty of his silence. Davi tugged Lucas's sleeve. Will I see you tomorrow? The question hung in the air, innocent and devastating. Lucas crouched again, cupping his son's face with one hand. I'll be wherever you are, he said, even if I have to wait outside. Mariana's breath caught. Clara watched them, her mask finally slipping. A single tear escaped, tracing a slow path down her cheek. She turned and walked toward the ballroom doors. Fast, then faster, before anyone could see her break. Lucas started after her. Clara, let her go, Mariana said softly. He stopped, shoulders slumping. She's going to leave me. Maybe, Mariana said. Or maybe she's just finally seeing you clearly. He looked at Davi, then back at her. What do I do? You start showing up, she said. Not with money, not with promises, with time, with humility, with the courage to face what you've done every single day. He swallowed hard. And if that's not enough, then you keep trying, she said. For him. Davi yawned, rubbing his eyes. May, I'm tired. Mariana scooped him into her arms. He was heavier than he used to be, but she held him like he was made of glass. Let's go home. Lucas reached out, then pulled his hand back. Can I walk you to your car? She hesitated, then nodded. They walked in silence through the emptying ballroom, past abandoned champagne flutes and wilting centerpieces. At the entrance, a valet brought her modest sedan around. Lucas opened the back door. Davi climbed in, already half asleep. Mariana turned to Lucas. You can't undo 3 years in one night. I'm not asking to, he said. I'm asking for a chance to begin. She studied his face. The guilt, the grief, the flicker of something that might, one day, become redemption. Tomorrow, she said finally, the community center opens at 9. We're painting the reading nook. If you want to be a father, bring overalls, not a checkbook. A slow, grateful smile touched his lips. I'll be there. She got into the car, started the engine. As she pulled away, she saw him standing alone under the Grand Marquis, watching them go, no longer the untouchable tycoon, but just a man, finally facing the cost of his choices. And somewhere inside the hotel, Clara sat in a darkened dressing room, staring at her wedding ring, wondering if love could survive truth, or if some fractures ran too deep to ever heal. The night held its breath. Dawn was coming. Voice from the study. Lucas hadn't come home. Her phone buzzed. A message from her sister. Are you okay? The gala. People are talking. She didn't reply. Instead, she walked to the window, pressing her palm against the cool glass. Below, the city moved on. Cars, workers, lives untouched by the quiet implosion of hers. The front door clicked open. She didn't turn. Lucas stepped inside, still in yesterday's suit, now rumpled and damp at the shoulders. He carried the scent of rain and exhaustion. "You stayed out all night," she said, voice flat. "I walked," he replied. "Mostly." She finally faced him. His eyes were bloodshot, his stubble rough, but there was something new in his posture. No defensiveness, no polished evasion, just raw presence. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked again, softer this time. He leaned against the doorway, as if too tired to stand upright. "Because I was ashamed. Because I thought I could contain it. Fix it quietly, without shattering your world. My world was already built on a lie," she said, wrapping her arms around herself. "Did you think I wouldn't feel the cracks?" He looked down. "I didn't think at all. That's the truth." I froze. And every day after that, the lie got heavier until I couldn't lift it, but I couldn't drop it either. Clara walked slowly toward him. "Do you love her?" "No," he said immediately. "Not like that. Not anymore. I cared for her, yes, but what I feel now, it's regret, responsibility, and guilt so deep it's become part of my bones. And him." Her voice trembled. "Do you love him?" Lucas's eyes filled. "From the moment I saw him last night, I realized I've been loving a ghost, a what if. But Davi, he's real. He's mine. And I missed his first steps, his first words, his first fall off a bike." His voice broke. "Clara, I can't get those back, but I need to be there for everything that comes next." She studied him, searching for the man she married beneath the ruin of his confession. "What about us?" she whispered. He took a step closer, but didn't touch her. "I don't know if you can forgive me, and I won't ask you to pretend this didn't happen. But if there's even a sliver of a chance, I'll spend every day earning back your trust. Not because I deserve it, but because you deserve that effort." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I stood on that stage last night and spoke about integrity, about women rebuilding their lives with honesty. And all the while, my husband was living a double life." "I know," he said, "and I hate myself for making you complicit in my silence." She turned away, walking to the piano where a framed photo of their wedding sat. She picked it up, tracing the edge with her thumb. "I thought we were partners. We can be again," he said. "But only if you lead. I'll follow your terms, your pace." She didn't answer right away. Instead, she walked to the coat closet and pulled out his raincoat, the one he'd forgotten last night. She handed it to him. "You're going to see him today, aren't you?" He nodded. "She asked me to help paint the reading nook at the center. 9 o'clock. Clara looked at the clock. 8:15. She walked to the kitchen, poured a fresh cup of tea, and handed it to him. "You'll need this. It's cold in Il Habla this time of year." He stared at her, stunned. "Clara?" She met his eyes, her own still wet but steady. "I'm not saying I'm okay. I'm not saying I forgive you. But I won't punish a child for your mistakes. If you're serious about being his father, then go. Be present. And when you come back, we'll talk. Really talk." He took the tea, fingers brushing hers. Brief, electric, fragile. "Thank you," he whispered. She nodded, then turned back to the window. "And Lucas, yes, if you ever lie to me again, there won't be a second chance." "I know," he said. He put on the coat, picked up his keys, and paused at the door. "Clara?" She didn't look back. "Go." And he did. Outside, the rain had eased to a mist. He got into his car. Not the chauffeured sedan, but his old black SUV, the one he hadn't driven in years, and pulled away from the gleaming tower that had once felt like a fortress. Now it just felt like a cage he'd built himself. As he merged onto the highway toward the coast, his phone buzzed. A text from Mariana. "You're late. Overalls?" He smiled faintly, typing back. Are his missteps just paint, a small boy, and the woman whose life he'd shattered and now hoped, against all reason, to help rebuild? He pulled up to the community center just after 9. It was a modest building with peeling yellow walls and a garden bursting with hibiscus and rosemary. Children's drawings fluttered in the breeze from an open window, and there she was, Mariana, standing on a step ladder, rolling pale blue paint onto the ceiling of the reading nook. She didn't look down when his car door closed. But Davi did. The boy sat cross-legged on a drop cloth, carefully lining up toy animals in front of a tiny cardboard house. When he saw Lucas, his face lit up like sunrise. "Papai!" he called, so naturally, so easily, as if the word had always belonged to him. Lucas froze. "Papai? Not Mr. Vale. Not sir. Papai." Mariana's brush stilled. She turned slowly, eyes guarded but not unkind. "You came," she said. "I said I would." She studied him, the overalls, the worn sneakers, the absence of a watch or phone. "No driver? No assistant hovering nearby?" "No," he said. "Just me." She stepped down from the ladder, wiping her hands on a rag. "Then grab a roller. Wall's that one. Ceiling's mine." He nodded, rolling up his sleeves. For the first 10 minutes, they worked in silence. Only the soft shush-shush of brushes, the distant cry of gulls, Davi humming a tuneless song to his toys. Then Davi stood and walked over to Lucas, holding out a tiny blue hat made of construction paper. "For you," he said solemnly. "All painters wear hats." Lucas took it, heart pounding. "Thank you, Davi." He placed it carefully on his head. It barely covered his forehead, but he wore it like a crown. Mariana watched them from the corner of her eye. The way Lucas crouched to Davi's level when speaking, the way his voice softened, the way he didn't rush, didn't check his phone, didn't look at his watch once. Still, fear coiled in her chest. This felt too easy, too fragile. She'd been burned before by his promises wrapped in silence. "What happens when the press finds out?" she asked suddenly, voice low. Lucas paused, roller mid-stroke. "I'll tell them the truth before they have to dig for it." "And Clara?" He looked down. "She's hurt, but she's giving me space to do this, to be here." Mariana leaned against the wall, paint smudged on her cheek. "You realize people will say I trapped you, that I used Davi to climb into your world." "I don't care what they say," he said, meeting her gaze. "What matters is what he believes about himself, that he was never a secret, never a mistake." Tears pricked her eyes. She turned away quickly. "Good, because he's not." Davi tugged Lucas's sleeve. "Can you help me build a castle?" Lucas smiled. "I'd be honored." They sat on the floor, stacking cardboard bricks, Davi chattering about dragons and knights who always come back for their friends. Lucas listened, really listened, answering questions, asking his own, laughing at Davi's exaggerated battle cries. Mariana watched from the ladder, her chest tight with a feeling she hadn't allowed herself in years. Hope, but then her phone buzzed. A local news alert. Tycoon Lucas Vale spotted at Ilhabala Community Center. Rumors swirl of secret child. Her blood ran cold. She showed Lucas the screen. He read it, jaw tightening. "It's starting." "What will you do?" she whispered. He looked at Davi, now proudly placing a toy flag on the castle's tallest tower. Then back at her. "I'll call my PR team, issue a statement, but not one that hides him. One that says, this is my son. I'm proud of him, and I'm learning how to be the father he deserves." Mariana's breath caught. "You'd really do that?" "I have to," he said. "For him, for you, and maybe for the man I want to become." Just then, Davi stood and walked over to Mariana, holding out a tiny painted heart. "For you, May, because you're the best." She knelt, pulling him into a hug. "I love you so much." "I love you too," he said, then turned to Lucas. "And I love you, Papai." Lucas's eyes shimmered. He didn't reach for him, didn't force anything, just nodded, voice rough. "I love you too, Davi, more than you'll ever know." Outside, a car slowed on the road. A photographer's lens glinted through the trees. Mariana's stomach dropped. "They're already here." Lucas stood, placing himself slightly in front of them, not as a shield, but as a presence. "Let them see," he said quietly. "Let them see a father finally showing up." And as the shutter clicked in the distance, Davi took one hand from each of them, linking them together. Not as lovers, not as enemies, but as parents. The paint was still wet. Says Papai. Aunt Lucia says there's ice cream at the market. Lucas smiled, ruffling his son's curls. Then we'd better go before it melts. Mariana looked up from organizing books on a low shelf. Lucas, you don't have to. I want to, he said gently. She hesitated, then nodded. 15 minutes. We still have the south wall to finish. He held out his hand to Davi. Race you to the door? Davi squealed and dashed off. Lucas followed at a slower pace, taking in the narrow street, the laundry fluttering between houses, the sound of a radio playing samba from an open window. This was Mariana's world, modest, real, alive. Not a single security camera, not a single whisper about stock prices. At the small market, Davi stood on tiptoes to peer into the freezer. Chocolate or strawberry, Papai? Both, Lucas said without thinking. Mariana raised an eyebrow. He's never had both. Then today's the day, Lucas said, meeting her gaze. Let him have joy. She didn't argue. As they waited, Lucas leaned against the counter, watching Davi bounce with excitement. Then, quietly, last night, Clara asked me if I'd ever loved you. Mariana stiffened. What did you say? I told her I cared, but that what I feel now isn't about love for you. It's about responsibility to him, and regret for what I took from both of you. Mariana looked down at her hands, calloused, paint-stained. I spent months wondering if I was just a moment of weakness for you, a distraction. You were never that, he said, voice low. You were the mirror that showed me who I really was. I just didn't like what I saw. Before she could respond, Davi tugged his sleeve, holding out 2 dripping cones. Here, you have to hold yours like this, or it falls. Lucas took the cone, his fingers brushing Davi's. Sticky, warm, real. They walked back slowly, ice cream melting in the heat. Davi chattered about school, about a crab he'd found on the beach, about how he wanted to build a real castle one day. With you, Papai. Lucas's throat tightened. I'd like that. As they neared the center, Mariana slowed. Lucas, what happens when you go back to your life? To boardrooms and galas and her? He stopped walking. I don't know yet. But this, he gestured to Davi, now licking chocolate from his wrist, isn't something I'm walking away from again. Not for empire. Not for image. Not even for peace. She searched his face. People will say you're doing this for optics, that you're trying to clean up a scandal. Let them, he said. I'll keep showing up anyway, even if you never fully trust me, even if Clara never takes me back, even if the world thinks I'm late, which I am. But I'm here now. Davi suddenly dropped his ice cream. Oh no! Lucas knelt instantly, pulling a handkerchief from his pocket, monogrammed, absurdly out of place, and began wiping Davi's hands. It's okay, meu filho. We'll get another. Davi looked up, eyes wide. You called me meu filho. Lucas froze. He hadn't even noticed. Mariana's breath caught. He met her eyes, voice trembling. Because you are. Something shifted in that moment. Not just between them, but within them. A door creaked open that hadn't been touched in years. Then, from down the street, a voice called out. Mariana! It was Dona Elza, the elderly neighbor, waving from her porch. You have a visitor. They turned. Standing near the community center gate. Elegant, poised, but with shadows under her eyes, was Clara. Lucas's heart stopped. Mariana went still. Clara didn't approach. She simply stood there, holding a small paper bag. When she saw them, she gave a small, uncertain smile. Lucas stood slowly. I didn't expect. Clara walked forward, stopping a few feet away. She looked at Davi first, really looked, with no jealousy, only quiet curiosity. Then at Lucas, then at Mariana. I brought pasties, she said, holding out the bag. From that place you like, Lucas, the one with the thin crust. He stared at her. You remembered. I remember everything, she said softly. She knelt slightly, extending the bag to Davi. I heard you like chocolate ice cream. Next time, I'll bring brigadeiros. Davi blinked. Are you my other May? Clara's eyes filled, but she smiled. No, meu querido. I'm a friend. For now. Mariana stepped forward, voice gentle. Clara, you didn't have to come. I know, Clara said, standing. But I read your statement draft this morning, the one Lucas wrote. My son is not a secret. He is my joy. She looked at Lucas. I realized, I don't want to be the reason you're afraid to say that out loud. Lucas reached for her hand. She let him take it for just a second. I'm not here to pretend, she said, looking at both of them. But I'm also not here to burn everything down. Not when a child is in the middle. Mariana exhaled, tears in her eyes. Thank you. Clara nodded, then turned to go. Clara, Lucas called softly. She paused. He didn't ask her to stay. Didn't promise anything grand. Just said, thank you for bringing Pastius. She gave a small, real smile. You always did love them. And as she walked away, the three of them, father, mother, son, stood together in the golden light, ice cream dripping, Pastius warm in their hands, the future uncertain but finally shared. Not perfect, but honest. Lucas stood by the half-painted wall, rolling blue over old cracks. His movements slower now, more deliberate. Davi had gone inside to show Aunt Lucia his castle, leaving Mariana and Lucas alone for the first time since the ice cream melted. She leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching him work. She's trying, Mariana said quietly. Lucas didn't stop painting. She's braver than I ever gave her credit for. You still love her, Mariana said. It wasn't a question. He paused, brush hovering. I love the life we built, the respect, the partnership. But love without truth is just performance. And I'm tired of performing. Mariana stepped closer, voice low. What if she can't stay? What if this? She gestured between them, to the center, to Davi's laughter drifting from inside. Is too much for her heart to carry? He turned to her then, eyes raw. Then I'll lose her, and it will destroy me. But I won't lose him again. Not for pride. Not for comfort. Not even for her. Mariana's breath caught. She'd waited 3 years to hear those words, not as an apology, but as a vow. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You think you've won? You've only opened the door for her to walk out, and for him to lose everything. Careful, Mariana. Some secrets are better left buried. Her blood ran cold. Lucas saw her face. What is it? She showed him the screen. He frowned. Do you recognize the number? No, but someone knows, and they don't want us connected. He took the phone, jaw tight. I'll have my security team trace it. Lucas, she said, voice trembling. What if this isn't just about us? What if someone close to you sent this? Someone who benefits from Clara leaving? From you being alone again? He went still. My brother, he said slowly. He's been pushing for me to step down from the Vale Foundation board. Says I've gone soft. If Clara divorces me, the shares, they'd shift. Mariana's stomach dropped. He'd threaten a child to get control of a company? He wouldn't see it that way, Lucas said grimly. He'd see it as protecting the legacy. Just then, Davi burst back out, holding a drawing. Look, it's us, me, you, May, and the lady with the Pastius. Lucas took the paper with gentle hands. For stick figures holding hands under a rainbow. It's beautiful, Davi. Is she coming back? Davi asked, pointing to Clara's figure. Lucas looked at Mariana, then back at his son. I hope so. But as Davi ran off to find more crayons, Lucas's expression darkened. He pulled out his own phone, dialed a number. Ricardo, he said when his brother answered, voice icy calm. We need to talk. Now. He ended the call before Ricardo could respond. Mariana stepped closer. What are you going to do? I'm going to make it clear, he said, voice low and hard, that if anyone tries to use my son as leverage, they won't just lose access to the company. They'll lose me entirely. He turned to her, eyes blazing with a protectiveness she'd never seen before. No more shadows, Mariana. No more fear. From this moment on, he is mine and I am his. Publicly, fully, irrevocably. Tears welled in her eyes. And Clara? She gets to choose, he said. But I won't let anyone, not even my own blood, manipulate her into leaving because they think it's convenient. As if on cue, headlights swept across the yard. A sleek black car pulled up, not Lucas's. The door opened. Clara stepped out again, this time holding a manila envelope. She walked straight to them, her face pale but resolute. "I just got this," she said, holding it out. "Hand-delivered to our penthouse. No return address." Lucas opened it. Inside, a photo. Grainy, but clear. Him and Mariana 3 years ago leaving a cafe. On the back, scrawled in red ink, "How many other secrets are you hiding?" Clara's voice was steady, but her hands shook. "Who sent this, Lucas?" He looked from the photo to his wife, then to Mariana, then toward the road where his brother's influence might already be moving like smoke. "I don't know," he said, "but I'm about to find out." And as the first drops of evening rain began to fall, the three of them stood together. Not as rivals, not as enemies, but as guardians of a truth too precious to lose. Because now, the battle wasn't just about love. "I didn't know him then," Mariana said softly, as if reading Clara's thoughts. "But I knew he was torn. I just didn't realize how deep the tear went." Lucas stared at the photo, then slowly folded it and placed it back in the envelope. His voice was low, controlled, but beneath it simmered something dangerous. "Ricardo has access to our old security archives. He must have pulled this from a traffic cam or a private feed." Clara looked up, eyes sharp. "Your brother? You think he's doing this?" "I know he is," Lucas said. "He's been positioning himself to take over the foundation for months. If you leave me, if the board sees me as unstable, he gets control. And he doesn't care who he hurts to make it happen." Mariana wrapped her arms around herself. "He threatened me, just now. An anonymous message." Clara turned to her, stunned. "He's targeting you too?" "He sees Davi as a liability," Lucas said. "A scandal that weakens my public standing. In his mind, the cleaner I am, the more disciplined, the stronger the Veil name." Clara's face hardened. "Then he doesn't understand the Veil name at all." She stepped closer to Mariana, surprising them both. "You're not alone in this." Mariana blinked back tears. "Why are you saying that? After everything?" "Because," Clara said, voice trembling but firm, "this isn't about you taking my husband. It's about someone using my pain and your son as weapons. And I won't let that happen." Lucas looked between them, stunned. "Clara, you don't have to protect her." "I'm not protecting her," Clara corrected gently. "I'm protecting him." She nodded toward the center, where Davi's laughter floated through the open door. "That little boy deserves a family who shields him, not one that lets him become a pawn." Just then, headlights cut through the rain again. But this time, they didn't stop. A black sedan slowed near the gate, windows tinted, engine idling. No plates, no markings. Mariana's breath hitched. "That's the third time today." Lucas moved in front of them both, instinctively blocking the view. "Stay here." He walked toward the gate, rain soaking his overalls within seconds. The car didn't move, didn't roll down the window, just watched. Then, with a low growl of the engine, it sped off down the coastal road. Lucas returned, jaw clenched. "They're testing us, seeing how we react." Clara pulled out her phone. "I'm calling my lawyer. We're filing a harassment complaint, anonymous or not." Mariana shook her head. "They'll just disappear, change numbers, use intermediaries. Then we make them irrelevant," Lucas said. He turned to Clara. "I'm releasing the statement tonight. Full acknowledgement. No spin. I am the father of Davi Fernandez. I abandoned him. I am making amends. And anyone who tries to harm him will answer to me personally." Clara studied him. "You realize this will explode in the press. The board will call an emergency meeting. Ricardo will go nuclear. I don't care, Lucas said. Let them come. For a long moment, the only sound was rain on the tin roof and the distant echo of Davi singing to his toys. Then Clara stepped forward and placed a hand on Lucas's arm. Do it, but do it right. Include me. He looked at her, stunned. Clara, if you're going to stand by your son publicly, she said, voice steady, then I'll stand beside you. Not as your wife, not yet, but as a human being who refuses to let fear dictate what's right. Mariana's eyes filled. You'd do that? After everything? Clara turned to her, rain glistening in her hair. I won't pretend this doesn't hurt. It does. Every breath feels like glass in my chest. But I'd rather live with hurt than with shame. And letting them use Davi as a weapon? That's shame. Lucas pulled out his phone, fingers hovering over the screen. Once I send this, there's no going back. Mariana took a deep breath. Then send it. He typed quickly, then read it aloud. To the public and the press. My name is Lucas Vale. 3 years ago, I failed the two people who mattered most. My wife, Clara, and my son, Davi. I walked away when I should have stayed. I stayed silent when I should have spoken. Today, I begin making amends. My son is not a secret. He is my heart. And from this moment forward, I will protect him with truth, with presence, and with love. Anyone who threatens him threatens me. That is all. He hit send. The three of them stood in silence as the rain fell harder, washing the world clean. Inside, Davi ran to the doorway, holding up a drawing of a house with 4 windows. I made us a home, he called, beaming. Look, May's room, Papa's room, my room, and a special room for the lady with the pasties. Clara's breath caught. She walked over and knelt in the wet grass. It's perfect, Davi. He hugged her, small arms wrapping around her neck. Will you come back tomorrow? She held him close, tears mixing with rain. If you'll have me. And as lightning flashed over the sea, casting their silhouettes in momentary gold, the 3 adults exchanged a look, not of resolution, but of resolve. The storm was coming, but this time they'd face it together, not as a perfect family, but as humans, flawed, healing, finally choosing truth over silence. And in that choice, Lucas came every morning now. Not in a chauffeured car, but in his own, parked discreetly down the road. He wore worn jeans, plain t-shirts, and the same blue overalls, now faded and smudged with Davi's handprints. He didn't just visit. He stayed, sweeping floors, fixing leaky faucets, reading stories aloud in a voice that grew softer, more tender with each passing day. One afternoon, as he repainted a section Davi had accidentally splashed with green, the boy tugged his sleeve. Papai, Davi said, unusually serious. Why do people take our pictures? Lucas froze. He'd hoped to shield him from this. He knelt, brushing a curl from Davi's forehead. Because they're curious, he said gently. But you don't have to talk to them, ever. If you see someone with a camera, you come straight to me or you're May. Okay. Davi nodded. Okay, but are they mad at you? No, meu filho, Lucas said, though his chest ached. They're just confused. But we know the truth, don't we? Davi smiled. We're a family. The word struck Lucas like sunlight through clouds. Later, as Davi napped on a cushion in the corner, Mariana handed Lucas a cup of coffee. You're good with him, she said quietly. Really good. He looked down at his hands, no longer the hands of a tycoon, but of a man learning to hold something fragile. I'm just catching up. She hesitated. Clara hasn't come back since that night. I know, he said. She's giving us space. And herself time. She's stronger than I ever imagined, Mariana murmured. Lucas nodded. She always was. I just mistook her grace for passivity. A silence settled between them, comfortable now. No longer charged with old wounds, but with shared purpose. Then, softly, Mariana asked, what happens when the board forces you to choose? Between the company and this? He looked at Davi, sleeping peacefully, one hand curled around a stuffed turtle. There is no choice, he said. I've already lost 3 years. I won't lose a single minute more. As if on cue, his phone buzzed. A text from Ricardo. Emergency board meeting. 6 p.m. Don't be late. And for God's sake, leave the kid out of this. Lucas's jaw tightened. He's escalating. Mariana's eyes widened. What will you do? I'll go, he said. But I won't hide Davi. Not anymore. That evening, Lucas stood outside the gleaming Vale Tower, heart pounding. Cameras flashed from across the street. Reporters shouted questions. Is the boy your heir? Will your wife stay? Did you falsify foundation records? He ignored them all. Inside, the boardroom was ice cold. The long table polished to a mirror shine. Ricardo sat at the head, arms crossed, eyes sharp with triumph. You've made a mess, brother, Ricardo said as Lucas took his seat. Share prices dropped 12% this week. Donors are nervous. And now you want to bring your illegitimate child into foundation events. Lucas didn't flinch. His name is Davi, and he's not illegitimate. He's my son. A murmur rippled through the room. The foundation was built on discretion, Ricardo pressed. On legacy, not scandal. Legacy isn't bloodlines, Lucas said, voice calm but firm. It's integrity, and I've spent 3 years betraying that. No more. Ricardo leaned forward. Then stepped down. Let me lead. You can keep your villa, your fortune. Just stay out of the public eye with them. For a moment, Lucas considered it. The ease of retreat, the comfort of old walls. Then he remembered Davi's voice. Are you my daddy? And Clara's quiet courage. I won't let shame win. He stood. I won't step down, he said, looking around the table. But I'll change the foundation's charter today. Starting next quarter, 40% of our grants will go to single mothers and children in vulnerable situations. And I'll do it publicly, with my son by my side. Ricardo's face darkened. You're throwing away everything. No, Lucas said, walking toward the door. I'm finally claiming what matters. As he stepped back into the night, rain falling softly once more, his phone rang. It was Clara. Did you do it? She asked, voice quiet. I did. A pause. Then, good. She didn't say more, but she didn't hang up either. And in that silence, filled only by the sound of rain and distant city hum, Lucas heard something new. Not forgiveness, but the first note of something that might one day become trust. He got into his car and drove back to El Habla not as Lucas Vale, tycoon, but as Papai. And somewhere in that small coastal town, a little boy waited, already drawing a new picture, this time with a tall building and his father standing proudly in front of it, hand in hand with him. The world was watching, but tension hung in the air like static before a storm. Davi sat cross-legged on the floor, building a tower of wooden blocks, his brow furrowed in concentration. Lucas watched him, heart full, as he always was now, aching with love, with regret, with a gratitude so sharp it felt like pain. Papai, Davi said suddenly, without looking up. Why does that man always look at me? Lucas went still. What man, Meufilio? Davi pointed toward the road. The one in the black car. He was there yesterday. And this morning. Lucas's blood ran cold. He hadn't seen the car today, but now, squinting through the trees, he spotted it. Same unmarked sedan, parked near the curve of the road, engine off, windows dark. Ricardo wasn't just watching the press. He was watching them. He forced calm into his voice. He's just passing by. Davi shook his head. No, he stays. Like he's waiting. Mariana, who'd been sorting mail at the small desk, looked up sharply. He's been back. Lucas nodded grimly. Since the board meeting. Davi finally turned to him, eyes wide and too knowing for a 3-year-old. Is he bad? Lucas knelt, placing his hands gently on Davi's shoulders. No one is all bad, meu amor. But sometimes people do wrong things because they're afraid. And when they're afraid, they try to control things they can't. Like you, Davi asked softly. The question pierced Lucas deeper than any accusation. He swallowed hard. Yes, he whispered. Like me, once. But I'm learning to be brave now. Davi studied him for a long moment, then leaned forward and hugged him, small arms tight around his neck. I'm proud of you, Papai. Tears burned Lucas's eyes. He held on, breathing in the scent of his son's hair, coconut shampoo and sunshine. Mariana approached slowly, her voice low. We can't keep pretending this is just gossip, Lucas. He's surveilling us, threatening us. What if he tries to get custody papers? Claims you're unstable? That I'm unfit? He won't get near a courtroom, Lucas said, voice hardening. I've already filed for full legal recognition, and Clara's lawyer is drawing up a joint guardianship proposal, with her as an approved guardian, if you're willing. Mariana blinked. Clara? She called her this morning, Lucas said. She said, if I can't be his mother, I'll be his protector. Mariana's eyes filled. She's extraordinary. She's choosing love over pride, Lucas said. Something I failed to do for too long. Just then, Davi tugged Lucas's sleeve again. Will he take you away? No, Lucas said immediately, fiercely. No one will ever take me away from you again. I promise. But the fear in Davi's eyes didn't fade. That evening, as the sun dipped below the hills, Lucas sat with Davi on the porch, watching fireflies blink over the garden. The black car hadn't moved. Papai, Davi whispered. What if I'm not enough to make you stay? Lucas's heart shattered. He pulled Davi onto his lap, cradling him like the most precious thing in the world, which he was. You are more than enough, Davi. You're everything. I left before because I was scared. Not because of you. Never because of you. Davi buried his face in Lucas's chest. I dreamt you disappeared again. I'm here, Lucas murmured, kissing his hair. And I'm not going anywhere. Even if the whole world tries to pull us apart, I'll find my way back to you. Every time. Inside, Mariana stood in the doorway, listening, tears streaming silently down her face. Later, after Davi fell asleep clutching Lucas's old handkerchief like a talisman, she joined him on the porch. He's terrified, she said. He's perceptive, Lucas replied. He feels the tension, the eyes watching us. Mariana sat beside him, their shoulders almost touching. What do? We fight, Lucas said. But not with anger, with presence, with truth. Tomorrow I'm inviting Clara here, not for strategy, but for dinner, just us, and Davi. Let him see that the people who love him are choosing each other, even when it's hard. Mariana looked at him, searching. Do you think it's possible? All of us together in some way? I don't know, Lucas admitted. But I know this. Davi deserves a village, not just a father. And if Clara's willing to be part of it, even from the edges, then I'll honor that. Not for me, for him. As if on cue, headlights appeared, but this time, they belonged to a familiar silver sedan. Clara stepped out, holding a basket covered with a cloth. She wore simple jeans and a linen shirt, her hair loose, no makeup. She looked tired, human, real. I brought feijoada, she said softly. And brigadeiros. Lucas stood. You came. I told Davi I would, she said, offering a small smile. And I keep my promises. Mariana opened the door. He's asleep, but he'll be thrilled in the morning. Clara stepped inside, pausing in the hallway. She looked at the reading nook, now complete, bathed in warm light. It's beautiful. It's a home, Mariana said. Clara nodded. Then, quietly, may I sit with him? Just for a moment. Lucas and Mariana exchanged a glance. No words needed. She walked to Davi's room and knelt beside his bed, watching him sleep. After a long silence, she whispered, He has your hands, Lucas. But your heart, I think he got from her. Outside, the black car finally drove away. Not because it gave up, but because, for the first time, it saw they were no longer alone. And in that small coastal house, 3 adults, wounded, wary, but willing, chose to stand together. Davi was asleep down the hall, clutching the drawing he'd made of the 4 of them under a rainbow. Lucas finally spoke, voice low. "You didn't have to come, Clara." "I know," she said, eyes fixed on the table. But I kept seeing his face. The way he looked at me like I belonged in his story, even though I didn't build it with him. She lifted her gaze, and for the first time, Lucas saw past the composure, past the grace, to the raw ache beneath. I spent days thinking I was the wronged wife, the betrayed one, and I was. But then I realized so was she, and so was he, and I didn't want my pain to become his burden. Mariana stopped by the sink, her back to them, shoulders tense. Clara turned to her. "Mariana, I need to say this to your face. I'm not asking to be his mother. I don't want to replace you, but I do want to be someone he can count on. If you'll let me." Mariana turned slowly, eyes glistening. "Why? After everything?" "Because he's innocent," Clara said simply. "And love isn't a finite resource. There's enough for all of us." Lucas's breath caught. He'd spent years believing love was transactional, something you earned, protected, controlled. But here, in this humble kitchen, two women were offering it freely, without ownership, without conditions. He pushed his chair back and walked to the window, hands trembling. "I don't deserve either of you." "No," Clara said gently. "You don't. But that's not the point." He turned, voice breaking. "I lied to you for years. I let you believe our life was whole while I carried this secret like a stone in my chest. I failed you both." "You did," Mariana said, stepping forward. "But you're here now. Not because it's easy. Not because you want to fix your image. But because you finally see him, not as a consequence, but as a person." Lucas looked at her, then at Clara. "What happens now?" Clara took a deep breath. "I've asked my lawyer to draft a separation agreement, not divorce. Not yet, but space. To breathe. To decide if what we had can be rebuilt into something honest." Lucas nodded, pain flashing in his eyes, but also respect. "I'll sign whatever you need." "And Davi?" Mariana asked quietly. Clara met her gaze. "He stays with you. Always. But I'd like visitation. Not as a formality. As a choice. If he wants me in his life, I'll be there." A long silence followed, filled only by the distant sigh of the sea. Then Lucas said, voice rough with emotion, "I need to tell you something I should have said 3 years ago. Before the hospital. Before the silence. Before I let fear decide for me." He looked at Mariana first. "I love you for the strength you gave him. For raising him without bitterness. For never using him as a weapon." Then he turned to Clara. "And I love you for the dignity you've shown in your pain. For refusing to let jealousy turn you cruel. For choosing compassion over vengeance." He paused, tears in his eyes. "I don't know if either of you can love me again, but I'm done running from the truth. Even if it costs me everything." Mariana crossed the room and placed a hand on his arm, brief, grounding. "You've already lost enough." Clara stood slowly. "We all have." Just then, a soft noise came from the hallway. Davi stood in the doorway, rubbing his eyes, clutching his stuffed turtle. "I had a bad dream," he whispered. Lucas moved first, scooping him up. "What was it, Meufilio?" "That the man in the car took you away." Clara's heart broke. She knelt. "He won't. We're all right here." Davi looked at her, then at Mariana, then buried his face in Lucas's shoulder. "Will you stay?" Lucas held him tighter. "All of us. All night." Mariana brought a blanket. Clara dimmed the lights, and in that room, lit only by moonlight and the soft glow of the porch, they sat together on the floor, Davi asleep in Lucas's lap, Clara leaning against the armchair, Mariana humming a lullaby under her breath. No titles, no roles, just people broken, healing, choosing each other in the quiet. And as the night deepened, Lucas realized something. The reckoning wasn't in the boardroom or the headlines. It was here, in the courage to stay, in the humility to admit failure, in the love that didn't demand ownership but simply showed up. Tomorrow, Ricardo would call again. The press would hound them. The world would demand answers. But tonight they had this. A child safe in his father's arms. And her hands. No one spoke. But something had shifted in the night. Not resolution, but a kind of truce. A shared understanding that the war wasn't against each other. It was against the silence that had nearly destroyed them all. Clara finally turned. I need to go back to the city today. Lucas stirred, careful not to wake Davi. The board. She shook her head. Ricardo called at dawn. He's filed an injunction. Claims your emotional instability and sudden public revelations threaten the Foundation's fiduciary responsibilities. He's asking the court to freeze your voting rights until a psychological evaluation. Lucas's jaw tightened. He's weaponizing my honesty. He's scared, Clara said, because your truth exposes his lies. He's been diverting funds for years. Small amounts hidden in renovation contracts. I found the files last week. Mariana's eyes widened. You knew. I suspected, Clara admitted. But I needed proof. And I needed to know if you were both worth protecting. She looked at Lucas, then at Mariana. You are. Lucas exhaled slowly. What are you going to do? Clara stood, her posture regal even in wrinkled clothes. I'm calling an emergency shareholder meeting. Not as your wife, as chair of the ethics committee. I'll present the evidence. And I'll testify that your instability is, in fact, your first act of moral clarity in years. Lucas stared at her. You do that? After everything? I'm not doing it for you, she said, voice steady. I'm doing it for Davi. For every child whose future gets traded for profit. And for the woman I used to be, the one who believed the veil name meant integrity. She walked to the door, then paused. But Lucas, if we win this, we don't go back to how we were. That life was a beautifully furnished cage. I won't re-enter it unless it's rebuilt with honesty as the foundation. He nodded, throat tight. I wouldn't ask you to. She turned to Mariana. Keep him safe. And keep him safe. She nodded toward Davi. He's the compass now. Not us. Mariana stepped forward. Clara. Thank you. Clara gave a faint, sad smile. Don't thank me. Thank yourself for not letting bitterness win. Then she was gone, the sound of her car fading down the coastal road. Lucas gently laid Davi on the couch and stood, running a hand through his hair. She's going to burn everything down to save what matters. Mariana handed him coffee. She always was the brave one. Just then, Davi stirred. Papai? I'm here, meu amor. Davi sat up, blinking. Is the lady with the pasties coming back? Lucas knelt beside him. She has to fight a dragon in the big city. Davi's eyes widened. Is she scared? Yes, Lucas said honestly. But she's brave anyway. Davi thought for a moment. Then he ran to his room and came back holding a small paper sword he'd made the day before. Give her this. It's magic. It makes bad men turn into flowers. Lucas took it, heart aching. I will. Later that morning, as Lucas prepared to drive back to Sao Paulo, Davi in the back seat, clutching his turtle, Mariana beside him holding the paper sword. The phone rang. It was Ricardo. Don't bother coming to the meeting, his brother's voice sneered. You're already finished. And that little bastard you're parading around? Social services got an anonymous tip this morning, alleging unsafe guardianship. They'll be at that hovel in El Habila by noon. Lucas's blood turned to ice. He looked at Mariana. Her face went pale. They can't take him, she whispered. They won't, Lucas said, voice like steel. Not while I'm breathing. He dialed Clara immediately. Ricardo just called. He filed a report with child services. Clara's voice was sharp. He wouldn't dare. He just did. A pause. Then, I'm turning around. I'll be there in 40 minutes. And I'm bringing my lawyer, and a judge I know who owes me a favor. As Lucas ended the call, Davi leaned forward from the back seat. Are they coming for me, Papai? Lucas turned, eyes blazing with a protective fire Mariana had never seen before. They can come, he said, voice low and firm. But they'll find me standing in front of you. Always. He started the car and pulled onto the road. Not toward the city, but back toward the center. Because this wasn't about boardrooms anymore. It was about who got to say what a family looked like. And Lucas Vale would face 1,000 dragons before he let anyone tell his son he wasn't loved, wasn't wanted, wasn't enough. Davi sat on the floor, legs crossed, calmly arranging his toy animals in a circle. "They're having a meeting," he said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "The lion is the boss. The turtle is the lawyer." Lucas knelt beside him, heart pounding. "You're very brave, Meufilio." Davi looked up, eyes steady beyond his years. "You're the brave one, Papai. You came back." Before Lucas could reply, tires crunched on the gravel. 2 cars. One unmarked social services, the other sleek and silver Clara's. She stepped out first, not in a gown or heels, but in tailored trousers and a crisp white blouse, her hair pulled back, briefcase in hand. Beside her walked a woman in a judge's robe, older, sharp-eyed, calm as stone. The social worker, a man with a clipboard and a frown, approached. "We received a credible concern regarding the welfare of a minor residing here, Davi Fernandez. Allegations of unstable guardianship and potential emotional risk due to recent public exposure." Clara stepped forward. "You'll find no such risk, but you will find a child surrounded by people who love him, protect him, and have documented every aspect of his care, from medical records to school enrollment to psychological evaluations conducted by Dr. Lena Rocha, who I've asked to join us as well." As if on cue, another car arrived. Dr. Rocha, soft-spoken, respected, and unimpeachable, stepped out, holding a thick file. Lucas stood, Davi's hand in his. "I am Davi's father," he said, voice clear and unwavering. "I've filed full legal recognition. I'm present. I'm responsible. And I will not allow anonymous, malicious rumors, sent by someone with a financial stake in discrediting me, to dictate my son's life." The social worker hesitated. "The tip came from a concerned party within your family." "Then the concerned party is my brother," Lucas said, "who stands to gain control of a multi-billion-dollar foundation if I'm deemed unfit. I suggest you check his records before you traumatize a 3-year-old based on a vendetta." Clara handed the judge a sealed envelope. "Your Honor, this contains financial discrepancies in Vale Foundation contracts, signed by Ricardo Vale, plus evidence of coordinated harassment, including the forged tip you received today." The judge opened it, scanned the first page, and looked up, eyes cold. "This will be investigated immediately." She turned to the social worker. "This case is closed. No interview, no removal, no further action without my direct approval." The man nodded quickly and retreated to his car. As the vehicles pulled away, Lucas exhaled for the first time in hours. Davi ran to Clara and hugged her legs. "You defeated the dragon." Clara knelt, brushing hair from his eyes. "With help from a very brave knight." She looked up at Lucas and Mariana. "Ricardo's done. The board will vote him out by sunset. The press will have a field day. But this time, the story is about corruption, not scandal." Mariana stepped forward. "What now?" Lucas looked at Davi, then at the 2 women who had chosen, against all odds, to stand in the same circle of protection. "Now we build something real." Clara stood slowly. "I've thought about it all morning. I won't go back to the penthouse. Not yet. But I've rented a small apartment in the city, near Davi's new school, near the Foundation's outreach office. I'd like to be nearby, if you're willing." Mariana's eyes filled. "You'd do that? For him? For all of us?" Clara said gently. "Because healing isn't a solo journey." Lucas took a deep breath. "Then I'll move too. Not to your building, but close. I'll step down as CEO, stay on as an advisor. Let the foundation focus on what it was meant to be. Service, not spectacle." He turned to Mariana. "And I'll keep coming here, every day, not as a visitor, as his father." Mariana studied him, then nodded. "But on one condition." "Anything. You don't just show up," she said, voice trembling. "You stay present even when it's hard, even when he's angry, even when he asks why you left." "I will," Lucas vowed. "Every question, every tear. I'll answer with truth. Davi tugged Lucas's hand. Does this mean we're a real family now? Lucas looked at Clara, then at Mariana. No, he said softly. We're something better. We're a chosen family. And that's stronger. Clara reached out, and after a heartbeat, Mariana took her hand. Not out of obligation, but out of hope. And as the afternoon light bathed the porch in gold, Davi stood between them, small and steady, finally safe in a love that didn't demand perfection, only presence. The storm had passed. A penthouse, but from a desk beside Davi's art-covered locker. Davi, now 4, ran across the polished wooden floor, waving a letter. Papai, May, Aunt Clara. It came. He skidded to a stop, breathless, holding out a thick envelope with embossed lettering. Official recognition, Ministry of Family Affairs. Lucas knelt, heart in his throat. Is it? Mariana took the envelope, hands trembling slightly. She opened it, scanned the first page, and let out a soft sob. It's done, she whispered. Full legal co-parenting rights. Joint guardianship. Clara's name is listed as approved extended guardian. Clara, who had just walked in with a tray of lemonade and fresh brigadeiros, froze. They approved it? The judge cited extraordinary commitment to the child's emotional and social well-being, Mariana said, tears spilling over. She wrote that Davi's stability doesn't come from a traditional structure, but from the intentional love of everyone around him. Lucas pulled Davi into his arms, pressing his face into his son's hair. You did this, Meufilio, just by being you. Davi frowned. I didn't do anything. You existed, Clara said softly, crouching beside them. And you made us choose better. That evening, they gathered on the porch, the 4 of them, watching the sun dip below the horizon in streaks of coral and gold. The black sedan never returned. Ricardo had resigned quietly, his name scrubbed from foundation records, his influence reduced to whispers. Lucas no longer wore watches or tailored suits. He wore paint-splattered jeans and the same blue overalls, now faded and patched with Davi's embroidered stars. I still have nightmares, Davi said suddenly, swinging his legs. That you'll disappear. Lucas didn't flinch. Then I'll tell you what I tell myself every morning. I'm here. I'm staying. And I love you more than my own breath. Mariana reached for Clara's hand across the small table. No words were needed. The gesture said everything. We did this. Together. Clara squeezed back. I used to think love was about possession. Now I know it's about presence. Lucas looked at them. 2 women who had every reason to hate each other, yet chose to build a bridge instead of a battlefield. The title they gave me in the papers, Tycoon Who Abandoned His Son. It still stings, but maybe that's okay. Maybe I need to carry that shame so I never forget the cost of silence. Mariana shook her head. You're not that man anymore. No, Clara agreed. You're the man who showed up, even when it was messy, even when you were afraid. Davi climbed onto